So, will the Browns lose to the Bills by 20 or 40? Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, or if you are new here, then please do me a favour and hit that subscribe button. So, the Cleveland Browns take on the Buffalo Bills in a game that I don't even think that the biggest, most delusional Browns fan would even entertain the idea that we would even have a chance in this game. This is probably going to be one of the bigger blowouts of the year. Is it going to be worse than the Chicago game? Maybe. We'll have to wait and see. But this is two teams that are just completely on the opposite side of the spectrum when it comes to talent, when it comes to class, when it comes to performance, when it comes to recent success. This is a Bills team that has pretty much been mainstays in the playoffs since they drafted Josh Allen. And the Browns, since having the chance to draft Josh Allen, have made the playoffs twice in that same time period. So, obviously, this game, look, I'm not going to spend too long on it because I know, you know, the Browns know they're not trying to win this game. You know, maybe in previous years, previous situations, I might have said, you know what, you know, any given Sunday, I've seen this team beat, you know, the 49ers, the 5-0 49ers with PJ Walker. You know, this Browns team beat the Packers this year. You know, there's certainly any given Sunday this team can pull out wins out of their arse every now and then. But that's when they're trying to win. And I don't think, I say don't think, I know that they're not trying to win this game. We've talked all about the draft position, how it sets up, etc., etc. This team is not interested in winning any of their last 3 games to finish the season, whereas the Buffalo Bills still have a division to play for, still have I think the number 1 seed in the AFC to play for, in a playoff year that is going to have no Patrick Mahomes. So Bills fans, Bills players are going to be thinking this is their year. They're going to be looking at this Cleveland Browns team as a small little pile of turd on the grass that they just need to make sure they don't step on. They just need to step over it. You know, don't step on it, just step over it and carry on your way and everything's going to be okay. And you won't be dragging the smell of shit around with you for the final few weeks of the season. So, as I said, I'm not going to go into the details of the X's and O's of this game because why would I sit here and waste 20 minutes of my time, your time, talking about, in all seriousness, X's and O's and you know, all of that kind of stuff and matchups, etc., in a game where the team is not trying to win. Let's not waste anyone's time by doing that. This is more about storylines from this game. This is more about things going forward with the quarterback, etc. This is about records hopefully getting broken. I've been saying for what feels like all season now that my Super Bowl is Myles Garrett breaking the sack record and Carson Schwarzenegger winning Defensive Rookie of the Year. Harold Fanning breaking the receptions record would be quite cool as well. That's where we're at. That's what we're rooting for this year. That's just the nature of the NFL when your team sucks. They're the few things that you can root for. So, as I said, I'm not going to waste all day talking about the X's and O's. I just want to talk about 3 things, the 3 biggest storylines, whatever you want to call it, from this game. And number 1 is, of course, the quarterback that is on everyone's lips at the minute. That sounded odd. The quarterback's name that is on everyone's lips at the minute, and that is Shedeur Sanders. Obviously, this is, I said last week, this is a very, I don't even know, divisive, I don't even know if divisive is the word, polarizing quarterback. And obviously, the whole kind of, I say argument, the whole debate, the whole whatever we're having on Twitter right now is whether or not Shedeur Sanders can stop this team from drafting a quarterback. As we said, we don't expect this team to win any of their 3 games. They are probably going to end up with a top 2 to top 3 pick. Can Shedeur Sanders and his performances in these remaining games show the Browns that they, and stop the Browns from drafting a quarterback? The short answer is no. I hate to sound blunt, but that is just the short answer. I don't think there is anything that Shedeur Sanders can do on the field that will stop this Browns team from drafting a quarterback if they are in position to do so. That is just the nature of the sport. That is just the nature of the position. You are not going to pass up on a consensus top 10 pick, not just consensus top 10, at his position, consensus top 10 picks, 2 of them that I expect to be in that range because you picked someone in the 5th round last year. And people might think that's me hating on Shedeur Sanders. That is not at all what I am saying. He has been given a very unfair situation. Both rookies were put in an unfair spot. They were told, essentially, you got 5 or 6 games on a terrible team to try and prove that you're the answer. No one is going to be able to do that, whether you're the first round pick or a 5th round pick. And the nature of being a 5th round pick just makes it even harder. It means you get no grace. I mean, Brock Purdy was a 7th round pick. He came in and led his team to the fucking NFC Championship game. Should have gone to the Super Bowl if he didn't get hurt. That's how well he played. And what did the 49ers do the following offseason? They made him compete for the job. They didn't give him the job. They made him compete for the job. Yes, he won the job, but he had to compete for the job because he's a 7th round pick. These late round picks get no grace. It doesn't matter if, as I said, you can lead your team a couple plays away from the Super Bowl. It doesn't matter. If you're a late round pick, you are not given the same grace, and you're going to be asked to carry on to compete. And if the Browns draft a quarterback, that doesn't mean that they trade away Shedeur. There's still obviously scenarios where he is still on this team. But as I said, there is nothing he can do, in my opinion. He can throw for 1,000 yards and 100 touchdowns. It's not going to matter. If this team is in position to do so, they are going to draft a quarterback. Would I obviously like to see good play from Shedeur regardless? Of course. I've said all along, best case scenario would be Shedeur Sanders proving he's the long-term starter at quarterback. You have a starting quarterback on a 5th round rookie contract. That would be incredibly valued. That is obviously the best case scenario. But, I've been realistic throughout the season. And as we get more and more closer to the end of the season, I don't want to gaslight people. I don't want to sugarcoat it. They're going to draft a quarterback if they're in position to do so, regardless of what Shedeur Sanders does. He has shown flashes. He's shown things that have impressed me, but he is also completing less than 60% of his passes. He's thrown more interceptions than touchdowns. As I said, he could have had 2,000 yards, 15 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. This team probably still would have drafted a quarterback. So to have that as obviously what you've done so far, as I said, this is not a knock on Shedeur Sanders by any means. This is more so just being realistic in how NFL teams value quarterbacks, and especially 1st round versus late round quarterbacks. I just don't think there's anything that Shedeur Sanders can do to stop the inevitable, which is this team drafting a quarterback. With all that being said, there is actually one thing he can do. I say that there's nothing he can do on the field in terms of his play, but there is one thing he can do to give himself the best chance of stopping this team drafting a quarterback, and that is winning games. Obviously, if the Browns lose out, they're going to have a top 3 pick. If they lose out and get help, one other game, they get a top 2 pick. 2 other games, they get the 1st overall pick. That's obviously where we are at. But if the Browns win one of these games and get to 4 wins, they're probably going to play themselves out of a top 3 pick. If they win 2 of these games, it's over. There's no chance they're going to be even close to being in range of getting a quarterback. So that's pretty much the only way that Shedeur Sanders can physically stop this team from drafting a quarterback. It is winning these games, and it's going to be fucking hard because he's probably going to be one of the only guys out there trying to win the game. As I said, I mean, this week's injury report, Jack Conklin has gone on to IR. His season and career in the Browns is over. David Njoku is out again. Obviously, this might be the beginning of the end for David Njoku. Dylan Sampson is out. Denzel Ward is out. Oh, Deshaun Watson's out. What a shame. Michael Hall is questionable, and Wyatt Teller is questionable. This team is not going to win this game. This team has no chance of winning this game. It's unfair for Shedeur Sanders. He's playing on a terrible team. As I said, he has nothing he does on the field is going to stop this team from drafting a quarterback. The only thing he can do is win 1 or 2 games to play them out of a quarterback, and that's going to be fucking hard when that's your supporting cast. So, Godspeed to Shedeur Sanders. I hope he plays well. But as I said, it's just an unfair situation all round, and I just don't think there's anything he can do that's going to stop this team from drafting a quarterback. And, when we get to that point, I'm, of course, going to talk about it. I'm excited about 2 of these guys, have been all year. I've kind of been teasing it with you guys because, I kind of made a promise to myself that I wouldn't talk draft during the season. So I can assure you once the day after week 18, those Mendoza and more videos will probably be out. But as I said, that's just where we're at the minute. Number 2 today, which I probably should have started with, if I'm being completely honest. It's the biggest thing for me, but I know that obviously Shedeur Sanders' name generates more attention than even this guy. But Myles Garrett has a chance to break the sack record today, ladies and gentlemen. He is 1.5 sacks away. It should be 1 sack away because the NFL decided to give half a sack to Myles because Shelby Harris fell over near the quarterback. So it should be 1 sack, but it is 1.5 sacks that he needs to break the record. He needs 1 sack to tie the record. I mean, look, Josh Allen is quite a hard quarterback to bring down. This is one of the toughest quarterbacks to sack in the NFL. But he has been sacked 33 times in 14 games. It's not like he's unsackable. He's not Aaron Rodgers. He's not like he just gets the ball out so quick that it's just impossible to get any sacks on him. You can get sacks on this Buffalo Bills team and on Josh Allen. He likes to run around. He likes to keep plays alive. That is obviously, how many sacks have we seen this year where the quarterback steps up, kind of steps to his left, steps to his right, thinks he has more time than he does, and then Myles just appears out of nowhere. So there is a chance that Myles can do it this week. I hope he does. Don't get me wrong, it would be awesome to break the record next week against the Steelers, preferably against Mason Rudolph. But I would get very squeaky bum time if we were going into the last game or 2 of the season still needing to break the record. I want him to break the record in 16 games or less. So that is obviously the biggest thing that I am rooting for in this game. Myles Garrett, 1.5 sacks, break the sack record, and then you've got them 2 games to finish the season to add to it and hopefully make it as more unbreakable as you can. But Myles deserves it. People can say, oh, he took the money, whatever. Yes, he took the money to stay in Cleveland. Of course he did. How many NFL players do that? But in the end of the day, he's still here. He's played in Cleveland his whole career. This is the best defensive player in the NFL. This is the best player of his generation at his position. This is one of the best edge rushers of all time. I'm getting bored of sugarcoating it now. I don't even want to hesitate in how high I am of Myles Garrett. He's the best player to ever play for the Cleveland Browns. You can, of course, bring up Jim Brown. You can, of course, bring up Otto Graham. I'm not going to argue greatness. Obviously not. Those guys have rings. But in terms of talent, Myles Garrett is above everybody else in the history of the organisation. He's above nearly everybody else in the history of the NFL. He is one of the greatest to ever do it. It is an absolute joy to watch him every single Sunday. Just imagine your team's 3-11 and you haven't got Myles Garrett on it. This season would be a lot worse and would be a lot more boring, would be a lot more depressing. As I said, this is my Super Bowl. At least we have something to root for. And Myles Garrett breaking the sack record is certainly something to root for. As I said, 21.5 on the season in 14 games, which is just absolutely insane to even say. 1.5 to go. Come on, Myles. Let's do it. Let's get it today. Let's break that record. And even though we lose by 50 and fall to 3-12, I'm going home with something. That is all I care about. It's not, but you know what I mean. So yeah, Myles Garrett breaking the sack record is, of course, number one on should be number one on every Browns fans, goals for this game, because winning it should not be. And then finally, biggest thing that I'm obviously from this game is whether or not the rookies can continue their good performance. Similar with Myles, when you're 3-11, your season is over. It's hard to get excited about stuff. It's hard to get motivated about stuff. But when you have a rookie class like the Browns do, you can get excited about the future even with how bad the ongoing season is. Starting with Harold Fanning, he has tied the rookie receptions record for the Cleveland Browns. So 1 catch in this game, and he will own that record, still with 2 games left to play afterwards, bearing in mind. He will have the most receptions by not just a rookie tight end in Cleveland Browns history, by a rookie in Cleveland Browns history with 67. He's going to absolutely shatter that record. He's currently on 667 yards, 3 games left. No reason he can't get to 800, 850, which would, of course, put him up there as well with some of the best rookie seasons from Browns receivers, tight ends, in terms of yardage as well. So 21 years old. I mean, only just turned 21 in the summer. It's just incredibly impressive. And, the back of your mind, you're kind of maybe worried about losing Njoku, obviously, with how much he brings to this locker room, how much energy he brings to this team. But if they do decide to move on from David Njoku, they're in pretty good hands. This is a 21-year-old rookie tight end who has 66 catches, 667 yards. He has been fantastic. Can't wait to, 4 touchdowns as well. So just a really bright spot for the future. Hopefully, Harold Fanning can go out there and break the record for most receptions by a Browns receiver, regardless of position. Then he said quarterback then for some reason. And then, of course, the running backs, it's been difficult because, I've said in the last few weeks, I'm not concerned about Quinshon Judkins. I know some Browns fans have started doing this whole, we drafted a bad running back and Trevion Henderson's way better, and and all of this stuff. And it's funny because it's coming from the same people that said the absolute opposite at the start of the season. But as I've said the last few weeks, how can you evaluate a running back running behind the worst offensive line in football? How can you evaluate a running back who is getting tackled 2 to 3 yards behind the line of scrimmage every single handoff? His yards before contact, yards after contact are hilarious. This is a good running back playing behind an absolutely disgusting offensive line. The yards in attempt don't look good, of course not, 3.6, but this is a guy that was hovering around 5 yards per carry after the first 6 weeks of the season, and obviously more offensive line injuries, more bad offensive line play, and that's obviously just been completely dive bombed down to 3.6, but still has 805 yards on the year, 805 rushing yards, 142 yards receiving. Only a handful of Browns running backs in their history have got to 1,000 yards, 3 games to get 195 yards. I don't think it's impossible. I don't think that's out of the realms of possibility. So, all of this talk about, Quinshon and people are concerned and etc. If he finishes the year on 1,000 yards, running behind literally the worst offensive line in football, I just don't see how you can't be excited about that player going forward when we get an actual NFL offensive line in front of him. So, as I said, I'm not really concerned about Quinshon, with obviously how the yards per carry, etc., coming down. He's playing behind just an awful offensive line, and it's so hard to evaluate. Dylan Sampson, unfortunately, is out for this game, but he has been coming on the last few weeks, especially obviously the first start of the season. He showed some flashes. He kind of then got put on the shelf a little bit. And then the last few weeks has shown those flashes. Of course, the biggest highlight of those being that 66-yard screen touchdown from Shadur Sanders. But I think he's second or third in the NFL in receiving yards by rookie running back. So certainly things to be excited about with Dylan Sampson. I think the Browns are pretty much sorted at running back for the next couple of years at least. I do think that Quinshon and Dylan Sampson are a good 1-2 punch. And then obviously the defensive guys. I said it earlier, Carson Schwessinger, my rookie of the year, my Super Bowl is him winning Defensive Rookie of the Year. Don't get me wrong, Nick Emenwari over in Seattle is making it a little bit squeaky bum time with some of his performances on a number 1 seed in the NFC team. That's of course going to help his case. He's not playing for a 3-11 team. He's playing for the team that has the number 1 seed in the NFC, one of the best teams in the NFL this year. So I don't think he's caught up with Carson yet, but I said a few weeks ago that all Carson really needed to do was just churn out a few games where he leads the team in tackle, 10 plus tackles, doesn't even really need to do anything that incredible. But as we're going into these last 3 weeks, as I said, with Nick Emenwari performing as well as he can, maybe one or two more big plays from Carson will help. Maybe one more interception, one more big sack, one more tackle for loss, whatever it is. We're going to need one more kind of game-changing play from Carson just to make sure that it's his award. Because as I said, I mean, he's led the team in tackles, I think, 8 times this season. He's had over 10 tackles, I think, 10 times this season. Tackling machine. But unfortunately, when it comes to Defensive Rookie of the Year, they're going to be looking at your moments and as your big plays, etc. as well. And when you've got Nick Emenwari doing what he's doing in Seattle, Carson, let's just get one or two more big plays and wrap this award up, because you deserve it with obviously how good you've been. And I mean, I think most Browns fans would agree Carson is arguably the person you get most excited about on this rookie class. He genuinely is playing at an all-pro level as a rookie, so really, really excited for him. And then Mason Graham, everybody's least favourite top 5 pick, defensive tackle. I mean, the kind of talk about Mason is I'll be honest, it's a bit insufferable, because it's people that have no idea how to evaluate defensive tackle play, that want their rookie defensive tackle to finish the year with 12 sacks. They're the ones that are saying that he's a bust and all of this stuff, etc. I encourage anyone, just go and watch his tape not just the last few weeks, the whole season, but especially since the trade deadline, that kind of era. I mean, he's just been unblockable. Yes, it doesn't result in that many sacks because he has Myles fucking Garrett on his team. When Myles Garrett's on your team, it's quite hard to, get 10 sacks. Myles Garrett is going to clean up most of those sacks because he is the best fucking player in the world. He also had Malik Collins, statistically, grade-wise, one of the best defensive tackle in football this year, playing alongside him. Obviously, Malik's out, so we want to see more from Mason in these last few games. But no, I'm not concerned about Mason. He continues to impress me. He's a big reason what's helped Myles this year with that interior pressure. And as I said, with Malik Collins out the last few weeks now, Mason Graham, Michael Hall, let's see what those two guys can do, as that they are the future of this Browns interior defensive line. But, some of the other guys, Gage Laverdane, Malachi Corley, Isaiah Bond. I mean, Isaiah Bond is really starting to kind of open up that role that I think he can do well, and that's as that deep threat. And, earlier on in the season, they tried to use him more as a gadget guy, and it just didn't really work. Whereas the last few weeks with Shedeur Sanders back there, obviously, offering a lot more in the downfield passing game than any other Browns quarterback this year. He's connected with Isaiah Bond a few times. I think that is the role that Isaiah Bond can exceed in. And I think going forward, that is the role that he will have for this team, is that deep threat. And obviously, the more he continues to show that, the better. But that's kind of where I'm at. As I said, there's not too much to talk about this game, guys. This team is not trying to win. We're not going to try and win any of these last 3 games. I know people don't like to hear that, but that's just the reality of the NFL. I'm not one of these guys that goes into a season saying, let's tank, etc., etc. I've said this 1,000 times. But in the end of the day, when you're 3-11, what is the difference between going 5-12 and 3-14? There is no difference other than draft position. As I said, I'll talk about it obviously more in the review of this game when we see some of the other results. But, there's a chance that the Browns can, I think, end up with the second pick today. They might even be able to end up with the first pick today, with how some of those other results go. You've got a Titans team that we just need one more win from in the last 3 games. They're playing a Chiefs team that obviously Mahomes torn ACL, he's out for the season. They're eliminated from the playoffs. They've got nothing to play for. And they just ruled out pretty much their whole team. So that is a very winnable game for the Titans. Raiders, Giants still play each other, etc. Draft position, all of that stuff. Look, I know a lot of people hate talking about it, but that's, as I said, that's the reality of where we are. Can Shedeur Sanders play well in these last 3 games? I hope so. But even if that's the case, even if we decide that he is our future starting quarterback next year, I still want to get the highest pick possible, because that just gives you more options when it comes to rebuilding this offense and rebuilding this team. And hopefully get into a place next season where we have higher expectations than winning 4 or 5 fucking games like we have the last 2 years. It's a grind. it feels horrible. It feels dirty when you're doing it. But if losing these few games on purpose can get you a quarterback, can get you an offensive line, can get you a wide receiver, whatever the fuck it is, that can elevate your team the next year, it's worth it. And that's just the reality of the NFL. But that's my thoughts on this game, guys. Let me know your guys' thoughts. Do we lose by 20 or do we lose by 50? Do you actually think the Browns, do you think I'm wrong? Maybe the Browns are trying to win. Do they have a chance in this game, etc.? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I've tried to get this across on Twitter before, but my opinion is not gospel by any means. I'm just a random British guy giving my thoughts on the Cleveland Browns, whether that's on Twitter or on here on YouTube. I encourage debate. I encourage criticism of my opinion, because that is what sports talk is about. I don't want this to be an echo chamber where we just come out with bad takes because we're all agreeing with each other. The way you get to good takes, the way you get to good conversation about sports is with disagreement, is with debate, is with criticism. So everyone, no matter who you are, is entitled to come and debate with my opinions, criticize my opinions, agree with my opinions, whatever it is. I encourage the dialogue. This place will always be open dialogue, no matter who you are, where you're from, whatever. This is an open dialogue for everyone. So I just want to make sure that is clear, because I love talking about the Cleveland Browns, but I also love talking about the Cleveland Browns with other people. So that's where I'm at. Let me know, as I said, what your guys' thoughts are on the game. If you do enjoy my content, then please drop this video a like, hit the subscribe button. It's free, but it really, really helps out my channel. You can also check the links in the description to see where you can follow and interact with me on social media. As I always say, I'm trying to build a community of Cleveland Browns fans, and even if that means I only get to talk to one fan a day, I'm happy because I'm talking Browns football with the best fan base in the world. Thanks again for watching, guys. I do apologise for the lack of videos that I would have liked to upload the last few weeks. This is the busiest period of the year for me at work. I've been so stressed and lack of sleep that I've even got a spot for the first time in like a year. So that shows you where I'm at the minute. But obviously with the Christmas period coming up, all of the stuff to talk about, I will make sure that I'm back up to where I want to be with these video releases, etc., etc. But thanks for being patient. Thanks for supporting me as always. And most importantly, go Browns.